You have to also remember who is your audience. So you kind of have to speak at their level. And you always are going to have haters in the comments. And people will make fun of me because I don't use dental terminology like, oh, she must not be an orthodontist. She used the word jaw and not mandible. You're speaking to the masses and you're speaking to teenagers and kids. And so I'm going to speak to that audience.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneurs podcast. Today, live, well, not really, from the West Coast, I have Dr. Ashley Kisling from San Clemente, California. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. And for those who are watching you, which I always tell people, always obviously, please like and share and comment on everything we're doing, whether you're watching it on live, YouTube, or whether you're watching it or listening to it in Buzzsprout or Apple Podcasts or wherever you are. This is one you probably want to watch because you can get to see what she looks like, because we're going to be talking a lot about what she's doing online to help grow her practice. But we'll get into that in just a minute. I'd love to start, if it's okay with you, like I do with everybody. Give us a little bit of a background of how did you end up in ortho? How did you end up where you are now? And then I know your story already, so we're going to dive deep into it, because for everybody listening, if you don't want to grow your practice, if you don't want to see incredible success without having to rely on necessarily referrals, without having to drop tens of thousands of dollars a month on Google AdWords and other stuff like that, then don't listen to this podcast. This is going to be a waste of your time. If you'd like to figure out how to follow Ashley's method of growing her practice, which is remarkable, then you might want to listen to this. So let's start with, how'd you end up in ortho? How'd you end up where you are now?
So I was born and raised in California. So I knew that I always wanted to practice in California. How I got into ortho is interesting. I don't have any family ties to ortho. A lot of dentistry stays in the family, and I don't even have a family member that is even a dentist. My dad was a lawyer and my mom was a stay-at-home wife. But really, I owe it a lot to my orthodontist. I felt like I had an impacted canine. And so before that, I didn't smile that much. I wasn't that confident. And it's truly crazy. Just when you have straight teeth, your personality completely changes. And I just knew from then on that I wanted to be able to kind of do that transformation for other people and give them, the confidence that I have today.
Fantastic. Nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a shout out to your orthodontist?
DeCiccio.
DeCiccio.
Pediatric dentist. Tell me.
Is Dr. DeCiccio still practicing?
I think he is a little bit. I think he sold his practice. So I don't know how much he's actually in his practice still today, but he's sold it. I don't know if he's a silent partner or still an associate working with him. I'm not sure. Well,
Dr. DeCiccio, if you're out there or Dr. DeCiccio, make sure he or she sees this, because they got a shout out from a superstar. Yeah. And so why are we talking today, right? Like, you didn't invent a new bracket, and you don't run a company. You're not a huge CEO of a massive supply company. And you've been practicing now for a total of how many months?
We're going to be celebrating our 1 year this month. So I'm a brand new business owner.
Yeah, so 12 months. So many out there might be saying, why are we talking to somebody who's 12 months out of practice? And I think out of school. And I think there's some good points that we're going to go through. One is, if you are a young ortho or a resident or somebody coming out of residency right now, because it's probably going to air at some point during the graduation season for many, there's some great lessons here. I think another reason is because I want to give you like a virtual high five from here, because people complain, people whine. I'm tired of it. I hate hearing it. Oh, I can't, because you had every reason when people hear your story to whine or complain or moan about all the things stacked against you. And instead, you chose to take a very different path than most, and you bet on yourself, and in a way that many don't.
Is too. I was definitely one of those people, and I was depressed and thinking, ortho's changed. The industry will never be the same. And I had all those excuses. And then COVID hit, and I realized I was my own biggest challenge, and that I just had to get out of my own way.
Right. And for many people, there's legitimate mental health issues that need to be addressed. And that's a different kind of story. I'm talking about people without mental health issues who say, oh, it's just too much work, or, it's so tough. I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm going to do. And that's not what got people into ortho residency. All right. And so this is for everybody out there. Get your, what's off the couch. Sorry, I'm going to say, get your ass off the couch and do exactly what she's going to talk about now. So let's set the stage. You're coming out of ortho residency. It's a year ago. COVID, California and COVID, we know what life was like there, right? And you're trying to start a practice and you're trying to look for a job and there's nothing
Yeah.
available.
So, I graduated residency in 2019, and this is like the rise of like Smile Direct Club. And, there was really a lot of like gloom and doom over the ortho industry kind of as I was graduating. It was like, is ortho dead? What is going to happen with all this direct to consumers? And, I was starting to really drink that Kool-Aid of like, what did I just spend the last 30 years of my life doing? I really committed to this field. And here I graduated and I wasn't sure if that, a brick and mortar orthodontic practice was still going to be viable. And so I really believed it wasn't at that point. And I also believed that I couldn't start a practice by myself. I believed that I needed a partner. I needed someone to help me. I didn't know how to run a business. So I partnered up with a co-resident that is super intelligent. His name is Alex Verga. He's out in Hawaii. We're still really good friends this day, but we're going to start a direct-to-consumer aligner company led by orthodontists. And it was getting called OraClear. We had a whole business plan. Then COVID hit and he was stuck in Hawaii. The reason why he went to Hawaii in the first place is because we both wanted to come out to California. There was no job opportunities. Nothing to buy, nothing to be an associate. We had to both work for a corporate, and I could only find 8 days a month working for a corporate at that time. And he worked for the same corporation, but they stuck him out in Hawaii.
Wow.
So the whole time we're like remote trying to, do this startup that we think is going to be the future. And then COVID hits and he's stuck out there for the foreseeable future. And I really just kind of had time to reflect. I was working for a corporation, so I was furloughed. And so I had time to really dive deep into like, what were my goals? What did I ultimately set out and plan to do? And, I realized that I was my own biggest obstacle. Like I had all these fears. I believed all these things of, what everyone told me, like, oh, you're moving back to Orange County. It's so saturated. You're never going to make it. You need to do this. You need to do this. Like you cannot, a startup would not be viable. And so I believed all of these things. And, I really owe it to my parents. They've been so instrumental in my life. And my dad was just like, you need to remember who you are. Like you were top of the class in college. You were top of the class in dental school. Like you've always done everything that you set out to do, no matter what the hurdle was. And he just gave me this like amazing pet talk.
Nice.
And so I went and I signed a lease in COVID to do a startup, and it was a shell. It was a completely empty building. And even while I was signing this lease, I pretty much reached out to everyone I knew in the area that was either a pediatric dentist or an orthodontist, being like, do you want to partner with me? Like, please help me. Please help me. Because I was still terrified to do it. Like I had the courage, but I still felt like I just wanted someone to lean on, it's just,
Right.
It's right. And in the end, I'm so happy that everyone said no to me, because I ultimately got to do everything the way that I wanted to.
Exactly.
I didn't have to run anything past anyone. It's really all been my creative ideas. And, it's kind of nice not having to run anything past anyone else and just do exactly what you sought out to do.
So here you are, you're starting up a practice during the heart of COVID, signing a lease. We all know how scary that can be for anybody who's ever done that.
Yeah.
And instead of going the traditional route of trying to do drop-offs and try to ingratiate yourself with every GP in the area, every pedo in the area, you ended up working with a pedo, right?
Yeah.
You and a pedo came together. And just fast forwarding a little bit so people can hear the story. After your first year, you've got a 7-figure ortho practice going.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure that like 95% of what's helped you grow was the pedo affiliation, right?
I think that that's what I thought. So we're in a brand new area that's a growing community, a lot of young families. I totally believed that the pedo was going to be what drove the ortho practice.
And by the way, was it a new pedo or an established pedo?
No, it completely fresh graduate. He's an associate of mine. He's not a partner.
And most people don't realize that a new pedo practice takes 5 to 7 years to start becoming a super good referral source. I asked the question before because I knew the answer. They'll refer you a gazillion patients, but they're all 3, 4, 5 years old, 6 years old. You're not, I know we grew on, my partner Doug worked right next to a brand new pedo practice, and you're going to see 10 patients a day, but they're all 4 years old and they don't need anything. So I know exactly. But anyway, my point is everybody's going to assume that what you grew is because of pedo. And that wasn't the case, right?
No. I mean, the pedo, I feel like has really kind of plateaued over a long time. And now that I've really grown the ortho, this next year, my goals will be to really grow the pedo because it's kind of been a little bit stagnant and it's maybe, 20% of my total year revenue. So it's not that much.
Right. And so you want to tell people, what did you do to grow your practice to 7 figures in 1 year with pedo playing a smaller percentage of your growth?
Yeah. So my husband is a general dentist. He works like stone throws away. He doesn't own the practice. He's an associate. So I knew that, doctor referrals were not going to be huge because everyone knows that my husband's a general dentist and then we have pedo in-house. So I couldn't really go rely on pediatric offices referring either. So I really knew that it was going to have to be a direct to consumer marketing strategy. And I decided, 4 months before our office opened, I went and I started Instagram, I started TikTok, not really I didn't have this master plan that this was going to be like my marketing strategy. It was more so just out of feeling necessity. Like every business has an Instagram and hey, TikTok's starting to get big. Why not? And I was a little intimidated by TikTok because, in the beginning, it was a lot of dance. It was for people that were dancing and singing or comedians. And I was like, well, what am I going to share on there every single day? I'm not special. I'm not talented musically or I'm not gifted that way. But what I realized is to grow a following on social media, you need to either entertain, you need to inspire, or you need to educate. And I realized that I could educate. We educate our patients every single day. That is just, we're used to it. And so why not educate the masses on TikTok? And so that's really kind of what my platform has been. Maybe from time to time, I'll try to do something funny and, but it's very rare. I'm mostly kind of, explaining tips and tricks, different appliances, how it works. And so that's kind of been just what my platform is, very educational.
Yeah. And you've done a great job of it. And, I'll call one person out by name, right? Grant Collins, the braces guy, a friend, love him. He's speaking at Orthopreneurs Summit in Austin in September. And I think he's amazing. And I think that he entertains. He certainly educates as well, right? He does a lot of education. I don't know how I asked him, I don't know how he has the time to do what he does because he has full on sketches that you would see on SNL or somewhere online. He's remarkable at what he does. And he, aside from just me, inspires many. He inspires orthodontists to get to that. And so he inspires his peers. He educates and entertains the consumer. He is the whole package. That's exactly what you want to be. And I tell him, I just spoke to him the other day and I had a funny story. I told him, I had a bunch of Girl Scouts in my office and this is the power. So just as a quick aside, people right now are hearing TikTok and oh, forget about it. It's stupid. I'm not duh. Right. That's the first response. For those who aren't on social media or aren't on TikTok, and I used to be one of them years ago, the first thing they would say is, oh, stupid TikTok. I'm not getting involved in that dumb stuff. Well, let me tell you this story. I have a bunch of Girl Scouts in my office, and it's true, Ashley, right? That people who aren't on TikTok or aren't doing well on TikTok are oh, TikTok sucks. Who are you going to get, little kids, right?
Yeah.
I was in my office with Girl Scouts, And I saw two of the girls kind of giggling and laughing. I go, what you doing? Oh, we're looking. And I looked at what they were watching. In my reception area, they're watching the braces guy. They're watching Grant Collins I'm like, how to deflate my ego. That's like going to dinner with my wife and she's like looking at pictures of Brad Pitt. I'm like, I'm right here. Come on, look at me. And so that's the power. And, I'll ask you now, before we jump into the details of it, do you feel like, for me, my TikTok's just entertainment here and there. We've had a couple of views that have hit 9 or 10 million views, a couple of posts. And we probably have close to 100,000 followers, but it hasn't translated into a lot of business because I do stupid stuff when I say stupid, I mean like a skit or a trend and some education here and there. Yeah. But you have had a visible growth of your practice because of it, right? And knowing that the parents are probably not the ones driving that conversation is my guess. What do you think is going on there? And how do you see it in your office when they come in? Hey everybody, tickets for Summit 2025 are on sale now. Take a listen to what some of the attendees from Summit 2024 had to say.
This is one of the most unique, most impactful meetings that you can go to as an orthodontist.
It has everything compared to other meetings. Entertainment, the content in the meeting, the speakers, the food.
I learned a lot. It helps the practice, so it really kind of checks all the boxes.
You hope to get something out of it that is going to pay dividends for years to come.
Definitely return on your investment.
We take back a lot to our office.
You get information that you probably don't get easily at any other meeting.
So I think that because it's educational, I'm answering a lot of questions in my videos. And so it's probing them to ask more questions. So when I engage with their comments and I use their comment as an idea for the video, it's really about creating a sense of community. And I think that the more that you can create a sense of community with your followers, the more of this quote unquote, maybe cult following that you might gain, right? And so I think it's just super cool that, I'll have little kids come in and they'll tell me, we drove an hour and a half to be treated by you. They're so excited. And they're like, did you see my comment? And, they think that we know each other. They think that we're friends even before they come into my office because it's video and they get to see my personality. They get to see my face every single day. And I think that that's what's so different than even Instagram is a very curated feed. It feels a little bit less authentic to me personally. I feel like with TikTok, my followers will see me with my hair done nice, like right now with makeup on. And then they'll see me like with my hair on top of my head and a bun with no makeup on. And I think that it's like a little bit more authentic and approachable. And when they see just all versions of me, I think maybe it becomes less intimidating of she's a doctor and she's our friend.
And you think that, again, every question I ask you, Ashley, just so you know, is not coming from a cynical point of view, right? Because the problem nowadays is everybody's cynical about everything, right? And there's envy and there's cynicism. That's not me. I am thrilled for you. I want to learn from you. I want to take what it is that you do and I want to make it part of my practice because I love educating. But do you think that these 12-year-old kids, 13-year-old kids have that kind of impact on their parents that, Mom, Dad, I know you want me to go see who the dentist recommended next door, but I don't want to go there. I want to go see her because she's so cool. I want to go and you got to take me there. Do you think that that's actually happening?
I think it is. I mean, and I'll go as far to say that it's not even the kids influencing their parents, but we have had so many other offices, orthodontic offices, call our office and say, hey, our patient showed us this video. What brackets are you using? What colors are those? So it's even gone that, like, the web has been cast that large. So that, with all of these save features, like, kids are truly saving certain videos to show either their parents, their orthodontist, that they want X, Y, and Z. Right.
Well, that's pretty cool. And a nice side effect is you're an influencer, whether you like it or not now. So you've had companies actually reach out to you to sort of be sponsored, right?
So now I'm having companies reach out to me. But in the beginning, I'm a startup and I'm trying to strategize how I'm in Southern California. My rent is $11,000 a month.
For 500 square feet, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Out of a closet, right? And so I had to really strategize how am I going to compete with everyone else around me, have this beautiful office, have competing prices? And so when I started to kind of go quote unquote viral and have a lot of engagement on my videos in the very beginning, I was like, you know what, like DSOs, they leverage volume for discounts. I can leverage my engagement for discounts. So I like quickly, one huge blessing is that I am young. I did grow up in like the rise of influencers, and some friends are influencers. So I've kind of seen what they've done in other industries, more so like fashion and beauty. And I kind of applied that to ortho. So I created a media kit, and I essentially like called up all the major companies and was like, I'm doing a startup. Here's my media kit. I'm having great engagement on TikTok. Like, do you want to work exclusively with me? I create content for you and you give me essentially DSO pricing.
And you're talking about ortho companies.
Ortho companies.
Yeah.
So, and at first, like, I didn't even know who to like call because I didn't even have reps. Like, I hadn't committed to what clear aligner company I was using. I hadn't committed to anyone. And so like, I literally just like call up Invisalign, and I kind of sounded weird doing it. And I was just like, hey, like, do you guys work with influencers? Like, I'm kind of having some success on TikTok. Like, who do I talk to? And the lady like asked me like what my following count was. And I think I was like less than 10,000 at that point. And she was like, we work with influencers like Charlie D'Amelio. Like, she has 100 million followers. Like, that's kind of who we work with. And she kind of just
thanks for nothing. Thanks for deflating my ego.
She humbled me real quick, and rightfully so. I'm still nobody, and I was nobody then. But I was like, well, why not try, right? So I didn't take that as a no. I reached out to a local our Invisalign rep, and I reached out to 3M and all the big reps in our area. And I was like, hey, can we do a sit down? Here's my media kit. Like, please talk to whoever you need to talk to. Like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to partner with someone, whether it be you or someone else. And so ultimately, I'm working with Invisalign. I just signed my second year-long campaign with them, which is really exciting. And essentially, I'm passing all of these major DSO pricing discounts along to my patients. So I feel like that's one huge reason why I've been super successful is, in my area, there's an orthodontist in every corner. So I've been able to charge the same exact price for Invisalign. I'm also doing Brava, for Wild Smiles, for whatever you want in my office. It's the same exact price. I'm not going to upcharge you for anything. And I think it's a very competitive price. And then in addition to that, just having, I had major signing bonuses in addition to discounts. And so that's really helped with cash flow and not having to be so stringent on budgets. I'll be super transparent. I haven't had a budget at all just because I've had the cash flow from working with so many different brands to really say yes to every opportunity and being out in the community as much as possible and giving out so much free stuff. So I've really haven't had to limit my expenses due to social media.
Yeah. And have you worked with a lot of influencers locally? I know a lot of people like to find other fashion, beauty, fitness influencers in their area and bring them in. I've done it a few times and I've had some good results here and there. Do you work, Southern California, right? Everybody's an influencer. Everybody's into fitness and health. Everybody's into beauty and fashion. Like, I think nobody has a regular job. Everybody's an influencer or wannabe. Do you work with those people a lot?
So I definitely have worked. So I've worked with big, I have had one of the Real Housewives be in my practice. She is one of our quote unquote influencers. And I think she's maybe brought in like one patient. So there's this huge misconception of, oh, if I work with this huge celebrity, they're going to bring so many people into my practice.
No, just the opposite.
And what I've found is I partnered with, I call him like a community leader. Like, he is not famous. He has, maybe 2,000 followers on, Instagram, but he hosts every community event, him and his family. Like, he is the community leader. And so I made him sign. I'm treating both of his boys for free. And he's essentially like, I make him sign like an influencer agreement with me because he truly is an influencer in our local community. And so I feel like finding the person in your community that has the most influence, it could be a soccer mom, it can be whoever, like a following and count doesn't matter in this instance. And find those people. And those are the people that are going to really transform your practice.
Amen. And that's what I started using influencers for advertising about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, probably 2018, 19, maybe even earlier, was my first influencer. I'm a big fan of Gary Vee. Started following Gary in about 2017. And, he was starting to talk about that early then. And so I started using it. And you realize just because somebody gets a lot of post engagement online, unless you can figure out how to turn that into, hey, buy my product online, I'm selling whatever. And by the way, go see Krieger Ortho and they'll give you blank, right? Like, you had to do cross promotion with them. But the famous people, they take up your time. They don't treat you well. They, like celebrities, they don't necessarily give a darn about you. They're just looking for free stuff. And it's
so many other collaborations that they're working on. Like, you're not them feel special by working with them. Whereas if you choose this community leader that is not used to kind of feeling like special and everything, they're going to give you so much love and attention.
Exactly.
And you're worth so much more.
Exactly. Like the real estate agent who's the single mom with 3 kids who knows everybody. And she's not even on social media. That's fine. Like we've been so poisoned by the idea that it has to be social media influence.
Right.
The mom who's at every PTA event, the mom who's at every soccer practice, she's at every baseball practice, she's at karate, she's, every bake sale. Like, that's an influencer right there. And and I think we're so stuck on, she has 100,000 followers, I want her. Yeah. Right. There are exceptions like Dovi Prero, right? When he had Charlie D'Amelio in his office, just having Charlie D'Amelio on your Instagram feed, like next to you, that's instant street cred. Like that's
credibility is through the roof. Yes.
Like that's a flex, right? Like Dovi, good friend, love him to death. Like that is instantaneously just like flexing your bicep and breaking the camera because it's so big, right? Like bucket list. What are your 2 truths and a lie? I treat Charlie D'Amelio. Yeah, sure, right? So there are exceptions with celebrities. Like, if you treat LeBron James, you don't need him to go out and tell people. Like, that's good enough. But yeah, a warning to people out there is if you're working on a smaller or mid-level influencer, it's important to have that conversation ahead of time of what your expectation is and what realistically they can or can't do, and to have an agreement to protect that, right?
Yeah, I have a contract. And if anyone ever wants to reach out to me and use my contract that I use with influencers, definitely reach out.
For sure. And so all of these things are great. And, let's start. We've been going for 30 minutes already, right? 35 minutes. Let's jump into, I'm a nobody, right? I've got 50 followers on TikTok. I've got nobody on Instagram, and I have 4 friends on Facebook, right? Like nobody knows who I am. I just came out of residency, which quite honestly, if you just came out of residency, you probably have a lot of people you're friends with in a lot of places online. But let's just say, let's go the other direction then. Let's say you're a 50-year-old ortho who's heard of the TikTok, and they want to get started. Let's say they want to duplicate what you're doing, right? Yeah. I'm not funny, I'm not inspiring, but I can do really good education. How often should I be posting? Is there any best practices you might suggest that have worked well for you, and things you've learned to stay away from?
Yeah. So immediately download the app Canva. I love our Facebook groups because I didn't even know what Canva was before. Like, I think I was asking hey, what is the going rate for charging someone to do an Instagram post? Like, I truly, less than a year ago, I also knew nothing. And my marketing team was wanting to charge me $200 to do an Instagram post. And I was like, wow, this is going to get expensive, Right. And so I go on and I'm like, hey, who are you guys using? And someone mentioned download Canva. And again, that has just been a life-changing app for me. I probably open that app 10 times a day to create content, not only for Instagram, but I also use it as my background for the TikTok. So I feel like.
By the way, you said the TikTok. I just want to.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you called it the TikTok. I just.
Pro Live and
I love that. It's just great. The power of subliminal suggestion at work. But you're using Canva so for those out there who aren't aware of what Canva is, do you mind? You said you use it for your TikTok posts and your background. What is Canva? I mean, you and I know what it is, but there are people out there who may not.
Yeah. So essentially, think of it as a user-friendly Photoshop or any type of making content. When you're scrolling, or maybe you're not scrolling, but if you're have any sort of advertisement in front of you, it could possibly be made on Canva. And it's a super easy to use app that you can download your own photos in. They have preloaded photos. And then I do recommend spending, I think it's like $99 for like the whole year, like 100% do that. You could download your entire brand kit. So I make content super quickly because my brand kit is completely uploaded in there. So my colors are the first colors to pop up. My fonts are the first fonts to pop up. I have all of my saved images that I typically use, my logos, and that all comes with $99 for a year.
That's awesome. And so let's take an example. You want to talk about what an expander is, let's just say, or perhaps maybe you would do this, TADS for Gummy Smile.
Yes.
I know because you've done that. I know you've done that one. So you find a video online that talks about TADS and Gummy Smiles, or maybe you make your own or you find something. So you've got this video and your style is you like to be in front, right? Like you're giving a presentation. You have the presentation in back of you. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's a photo, and you're talking into the camera.
Correct.
As like you are here right now, but instead of having your room and your couch in back of you, it could be a smile, it could be a tear, you could be pointing to something using your finger and say, check this out, right? That's all being made with Canva.
Correct. So whatever background that I'm using, that is made in Canva more than likely. Unless it's like a video that I shot of like my patients or something. In the very beginning, when my office wasn't open, I was like using like dolphin animated videos. Right. That was go-to in the beginning. And I kind of strayed away with that now because I love to use my own patients. My patients get super excited when, a video goes viral and they're the background. Oh, that's my mouth.
And that's the funniest part is people like, oh, I feel so weird asking patients. It's like strange. And like, I've had people, because in my office, when we started Case, and we've been doing it for ages, learned it from Chris Feldman. I always love to give shout outs and thank yous to people who teach me things. Chris Feldman from New Iberia, Louisiana, also a rock star. When I was visiting his office a couple of years ago, he's like, you got to, well, before that, because I've had it for 6.5, 7 years, you have a smile wall with your logo on it. And so people would come in and be like, when do I get to take my picture in front of the wall and get posted on your social media? They want to be on your social media. Like, it's your 70-year-old patient probably doesn't want to be on your social media, right? They don't quite understand it. But if they're under 35 or 40 years of age, the moms, the patients, they all want to be on your social media, right?
So here's something that I do that I would 1,000% implement in any other office like tomorrow is part of my new patient paperwork is a photo release. So I don't have to ask anyone, and I make it very clear. This photo release is for social media, so I don't have to ask anyone. I pretty much know who wants to be on my social media accounts and who doesn't. Right. And if they checked no, then I never ask them. And if they say yes, of course, I still always ask. But from the get-go that they're excited about, they want to do it.
Yeah. And we have the same thing, photo release. And we have people who say no. Cool. I respect it. That's all right. We got enough people who are interested. So now I want to talk about a TADS for intrusion of a gummy smile or something along those lines. I've got my video or I've got my online thing that I downloaded and I made it in Canva and I'm ready to post it, right? In that post, are you doing, on TikTok, is there anything you've learned about wording? Long, short, hashtags, no hashtags? What typically gives you your best results?
Okay, so you need a strong hook in the beginning. That is number one. So TikTok, a lot of success is kind of just like psychology, right? We live in a world of scrolling. And so you want to
get
scroll.
1.5 seconds. That's it.
Literally have the first 5 seconds to capture that person. So you want to ask a question. I usually say like, I just always have like my go-to hooks in the beginning. So a hook is most important. And then also length of the time. So how videos go viral on TikTok is viewer watching time. So if your percentage is super low, that video. So essentially I should start over that.
No, you're perfect. Totally. You're on the point.
Like going to get released to a small group of people. Right. And it's going to see how well in that small group of people did it perform. And the number one thing is viewer watch time. So if a lot of people watch the full video, which is going to be your followers in the beginning, then it's going to be released to a bigger batch. And then it's going to see how well did it perform, and it goes bigger. And that's how a video goes viral on TikTok. Right.
And so can you give an example of one of your hooks?
Did you just get braces on? Well, you're going to want to save this video.
Right. And I wanted, by the way, you're fantastic. I just want to say, you made me want to get braces. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, it's something I struggle with because you have to be a bit of a salesperson, right? You've got to think outside the box and not think about what's important to you. It's what's important to the person who's 15 years old or 12 years old and watching it, right? And get people excited about there's something coming. And we always see it online. 3 things you have to know if you're considering blank. You know, the top 5 biggest mistakes people make when they do whatever. It's clickbait. I mean, let's call it what it is. Yeah, it's total clickbait. But the difference is your clickbait actually has substance behind it. Whereas like the new big thing in advertising, it drives me freaking bananas and I can't stand it, is when they catch me with clickbait and it becomes one of those stories like, you know, the tagline is, you know, bizarre ending to a stomach bypass surgery or something silly like weirdest ending out ever. And also you click on it and they get into the story and it takes like 45 clicks to get to it. You know, Ashley was a normal young lady. She went to school you know the ones I'm talking about, I won't even, now they've turned me off where if I see that I immediately go the other direction. The difference is yours, you immediately jump into a video or a picture where you're explaining right away what's going on. And what video do you know has gotten the most views of all of your videos?
I think it's talking about white spot lesions, talking about oral hygiene, which is like, you would think that people wouldn't care about.
I don't get it.
But it's like a little bit of a shock too, right? I think a lot of kids don't know that if you have poor oral hygiene, or maybe it wasn't drove home enough, that you can have scars on your teeth.
Yeah, you can have beautifully straight teeth with holes in them.
Exactly. So I think that that's my most viral video.
How many views did you have? Do you know?
I think that's one is like 15 million. I have videos that are like 60 or 70, but they've been boosted by Invisalign. So those aren't organic.
60 or 70 million views.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So I have had a few hit 10 million. Mm-hmm. And they're the dumbest, like they make no sense. Like I'll make a video that my team is sure is going to be like incredible, right? And what I've learned is entertaining, at least from my perspective, doesn't go anywhere near as far as educational. But whenever we bring out a typodont, like you get like 8 million views from just a typodont eating candy. Like it's like my assistant took one day when I was in the office, took a typodont and put it together eating different candies you shouldn't eat while you have braces. And she put it to, you know, Bieber's Yummy, right?
Right.
And it got 10 million views. It was the dumbest, stupidest video on the planet, but it literally got us like 20,000 followers overnight.
Well, you have to also remember, like, who is your audience?
I know.
You know, kids.
I know.
So you kind of have to speak at their level. Like, and you always are going to have like haters in the comments, and people will make fun of me because I don't use dental terminology. Like, oh, she must not be an orthodontist. She used the word jaw and not mandible. Right. Well, I'm not going to speak to a 12-year-old and say mandible. You know, you're speaking to the masses and you're speaking to teenagers and kids. And so, you know, I'm going to speak to that audience.
And people need to understand, if you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to get hate. Right? Yeah. Through Orthopreneurs, I get those vocal, smaller voices that, oh, I can't believe, and who cares, right? Like you could make the best cake on the planet and give it to 1,000 people, and 20 of them are going to go, this is the worst cake I've ever eaten. My mother's cake is way better than this. And like, you can come back with vitriol and hate, or just like, hey, sorry. I'm sorry you don't like the cake, man. It's okay. Maybe you like my next cake, right? And you have to have thick skin if you're going to do this, because it's going to be great. And would you agree that you also need to double down on who you are? Like if you're not funny and you can't fake funny, don't do funny videos.
Right. And try to like be a little bit authentic, because, you know, the platform is getting super saturated, and, you know, there's going to be a lot of the same type of content. And so I think a lot of people, when they begin, they just want to copy whatever they saw.
Right.
And like, you're not going to have a lot of growth with that, because that wasn't original. So kind of figuring out like, who are you? What's your personality? Just be true to yourself.
Right. I agree with that 100%. And I love that. And, you know, we were talking earlier before we came on the podcast. And again, I know we're winding down with time here. We've been on for a while and I love this. I could do this all day long. But there's a couple of ways you can do this. I mentioned Grant Collins, right?
Yeah.
And I love Grant Collins. I think he typifies what all of us wish we could do, right? Like he is on every level. And I love that guy. And he's positive minded. He brings his family into it, right? And he's everything. And then there's other people like Dovi Prero, who I love, who's more Instagram than TikTok, right? That's the medium that he's chosen. And he was really one of the big orthodontists early in Instagram before anybody was really doing a lot of Instagram stuff. And he's always done it with class and style. And then there's people out there who have gotten a lot of followers who I just say look like asses. I don't mean it, you know, you and I talked a little bit about it. You know, I don't need to twerk. I don't need to curse. I don't need to only do dances. You know, like there are people out there who only dance. And I giggle and I laugh at some of them like what 12-year-old is going to an ortho practice because they dance, right? Granted, Grant Collins has some dancing you'll see from his team.
Right.
But 90% of what he does is not dancing. And you'll never see him curse. And you'll never see him demean himself. And I guess I'm all in on social media, but I can't ever imagine doing some of the stuff I see some of the people do who've gotten pretty big profiles demeaning themselves or reducing themselves. And it's not because I'm not able to joke, but what are your thoughts on, like, I've never seen you do it, right? I've never seen you do those sorts of things. Do you think, and I know it's a tough question, do you think it's worth it for the people out there who are screaming, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, to get followers? I mean, I know you may like to dance, but there comes a point where it gets kind of silly and stupid, or am I just musing out loud and being an idiot here?
I think as social media gets more and more saturated and, you know, you want this following and you're trying to think of strategies of how to differentiate yourselves. And even I kind of fall into that. I'm like, oh, I haven't had a lot of growth in a while. Like I need to think of something new, or I need to do something to grab people's attention. And so lately for me, like I've been working with some brands that are like new innovators, like Wild Smiles. They're brackets that are shapes. And I've been having those videos go so viral because people are excited about something new. No one else is talking about heart-shaped braces. Or I'm working with Brava by Brius, and no one's really seen a lot of appliances behind the teeth. And so I think that just still being true to yourself, but thinking of original content. What have people not seen, and differentiate yourself that way?
Right. But you're not dancing in a bikini while you're putting on the braces on the lingual, right? Like there's a line that you just won't cross, right? Correct. And for me, I will not grow my brand if it means that people say, oh yeah, Krieger Ortho, I saw him online. His stuff went viral. I mean, he acts like an idiot, but you know, I can't stop watching his stuff. I don't want to be the train wreck that grows my practice, right? And that's I'll be totally authentic. I'll expose my personality and be who I am. I just can't cross that line. And I'm always confused by those who do. And again, if they're happy, I mean, I see videos, no joke, from orthos that had to have taken a day or at least 3 to 5 hours to coordinate. Like you see a doctor with 6 team members all in a really coordinated dance for 45 seconds to a minute. That didn't happen spontaneously.
Well, and I think you asked me a little bit before, like, How much do you need to post, all that sort of stuff. And
Right.
why I have had this consistency is none of my content is overly thought of. Like, I'm not doing batch content. I'm literally waking up every day, having an idea that pops in my head. It's probably from a comment that a kid asked me. And I just create really quickly in Canva the background, and I go and I create it. And again, that's why you see me sometimes with no makeup on. You see me however which way. I don't care, because I think it comes off approachable and relatable.
Well, it's awesome. And like I said, and there's a difference between the authenticity of your stuff, which I love, by the way.
Thank you.
And like, you take Grant Collins as an example with his Karen, the hygienist, like that's legitimate comedy. Like, I laugh out loud at what he does,
but not
he'll tell you, sorry?
Not everyone can do that.
No. And he'll tell you he loves doing it. It's his outlet. He spends maybe 30 minutes a day on it, and God bless him. But neither what you do nor what he does look contrived. When somebody's always doing a dance to a song and they're lip syncing it, or they're dancing with 6 team members and they're each walking down the hallway one at a time, to me, it's like, okay, if I wanted a professional dance, I would have gone to a show. Like, this doesn't entertain me.
Right.
It's like, I know it entertains you and your team, and you may have some followers, but it's like, I'm moving on to the next one. This doesn't do much for me. But the point is, there's lots of room for everybody to do what they want to do. And the best part is, the marketplace decides what's entertaining and what's not, right? And so last question for you on this topic. So you're big on TikTok. What about Instagram and Facebook? Do you have a YouTube channel where you post your TikTok videos? What do you do other than TikTok, and what have you seen from that?
So I have an Instagram. I have all the platforms. I focus most energy on TikTok just because I get a revenue source out of that. My Instagram, I feel like, is more so like for our local moms. And if you go to it, it's a very curated feed. It feels nice and beautiful, and it's very educational as well. But it's a very different feel than my TikTok. And then I repurpose all of my TikToks onto my YouTube. I just have like a social media assistant that does that for me. And then at my Facebook, I should give more love to it. It's essentially whatever I post on Instagram automatically gets reposted to my Facebook. But for me, the most growth and doors and opportunities that have opened is truly because of TikTok. I mean, I don't think companies are approaching doctors in their first year of being open as being KOL speakers. Right. That's, truly because of my TikTok.
Yeah, so it's amazing. You're truly an inspiration to me, and I know to many others who are going to be listening and watching this. Maybe we'll get you on the stage at Orthopreneurs Summit sometime.
Ooh.
Talk about 2023. I haven't announced out loud where it is yet, but let's just say it's in a place that rhymes with Isney and starts with a D.
Oh.
But not the West Coast Disney. It's going to be Orlando 2023. And so it's going to be a great meeting. So maybe we can get you to speak there on this. You'll even have more data at that point. So it'll be kind of fun.
Sure.
Yeah. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this. I know you're going to change the way I look at things. And again, just want to say thank you for being here.
Well, I want to thank you. And then I also just want to give a second to thank my husband and my office manager and my lead clinical assistant. It has been a wild first year, and I couldn't have done it without them being so instrumental. So I wanted to give a little shout out.
You should put them in the next dance.
No, they hate social media. They hide when I take photos or anything.
And those are the best social media posts, by the way, is when you start filming and they're in the background and you see them scatter.
Yeah, they're
like I've done those before where I'm I got my phone out, I'm taking, and all of a sudden somebody behind me's talking, but they didn't realize they were on camera, and all of a sudden they see and they run. Those are the best right there. But yeah, nice to give a shout out. And Dr. DeCiccio, is that it?
Yes.
There you go. You see, we got everybody in there. So thanks so much. I appreciate your time today, and just wish you lots of luck.
Thank you so much.